Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode on your channel Pure English. In today's episode, we will be tackling the topic of reflexive pronouns. So, reflexive pronouns is a fancy name which is used to refer to a group of words which all of you are familiar with. I'm talking here about these words: myself, yourself, yourselves, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, and themselves. As you can see, all of reflexive pronouns end either in the suffix self or selves. So they end in the suffix self when they refer to a singular person or a singular thing, whereas if they refer to something or somebody in the plural form, like more than one, they end in the suffix selves. So selves for plural and self for singular. All right. So we call this group of words in English reflexive pronouns, which means that the word class or the part of speech that these words belong to is pronouns. These words are not nouns, they are not verbs, they are not adjectives, they are pronouns. Of course, they have equivalent subject and object pronouns. For example, the subject pronoun I is the object pronoun from it is me, and the reflexive pronoun is myself. The subject pronoun she has the object pronoun her and has the reflexive pronoun herself. The subject pronoun it has the object pronoun it also and has the reflexive pronoun itself. Let's take a couple of the plural ones. So we is the subject pronoun. Us is the object pronoun. Ourselves is the reflexive pronoun. Also, they is the subject pronoun. Them is the object pronoun, and themselves is the reflexive pronoun. Finally, he is the subject pronoun, him is the object pronoun, and himself is the reflexive pronoun. So all of the words I have just highlighted are pronouns. The group of them, which is labeled as a subject pronoun, these group of words act as subjects in the sentence. The other group, categorized under object pronouns, are also pronouns, just like the first group, but they act as object in the sentence rather than subject. So, what is the function or the purpose of reflexive pronouns? The function of subject pronouns is to act as the subject in the sentence. And the function of the object pronouns is to act as the object in the sentence. That's why the first group is called subject pronouns, and the second group is called object pronouns. What about reflexive pronouns? Myself, herself, himself, ourselves, themselves, yourself, yourselves. What are these used for? Well, we use reflexive pronouns when the subject and the object in the sentence are the same person or the same thing. Please focus with me, because that's the golden point here, or the golden rule. Reflexive pronouns are used in a sentence when the subject and the object of the sentence are the same person or the same thing. Let me give you a couple of examples. When you say, I taught myself how to swim. So I is the subject. Whom did I teach? I taught myself. So I was the subject and the object at the same time. So we must use a reflexive pronoun as the object in the sentence by saying, I taught myself how to swim. We cannot say here, I taught me, because me, that's correct, it's an object pronoun, but it cannot be used in this particular sentence because the subject is also I. So I cannot use an object pronoun in this case as the object because the person doing the action and the person receiving the action is the same person, so we must use a reflexive pronoun as an object. So we say, I taught myself how to swim rather than I taught me how to swim. Another example, the cat cleaned itself. So the cat is the subject who cleaned. Who was cleaned? The cat also. So we use itself as the object of the sentence, which is a reflexive pronoun. She looked at herself in the mirror. Who looked? She. Who was looked at? She. So she is the person doing the action and the person receiving the action. She's the object and the subject at the same time. So we use a reflexive pronoun as the object in this sentence, and we say she looked at herself in the mirror rather than saying she taught her or she looked at her in the mirror. One of the reflexive pronouns is the word themselves. So normally and traditionally, themselves is used as a reflexive pronoun to refer to the subject pronoun they and the object pronoun them, which means that themselves is a plural reflexive pronoun because it ends in the suffix selves rather than self, which is used for singular reflexive pronouns. But there is another modern use for the reflexive pronoun themselves, and that's to refer to a singular person when we want to avoid mentioning the sex or the gender of that person, to avoid mentioning whether they are male or female, or when we are not sure or when we don't know if the person we're referring to is male or female. So themselves normally and traditionally is used to refer to a plural noun, being a group of people or a group of things. But if the gender is unknown, if the gender is irrelevant, or if we want to be inclusive of all genders, males and females, we use themselves to refer to a person without mentioning their sex or gender, whether they are male or female. Let me give you a couple of examples. If someone wants to join, they can introduce themselves. So I don't know if the person who is wishing to join is male or female. I don't know. It could be male, it could be female. So to include all the possible genders, we use themselves and we say, if someone, which is also gender neutral, someone is neutral, it's not male or female. If someone wants to join, they can introduce themselves. You see, they, themselves. They can introduce themselves. So I'm using they and I'm using themselves to refer to a single person because I'm not sure or I don't know if that person is going to be male or female. Another example. Every student should ask themselves if they did their best. You see, Student is also a gender-neutral word. It can be male or it can be female. So every student should ask themselves. I don't say himself or herself, because it could be male or female. Every student should ask themselves if they did their best. So I'm using they, their, themselves to refer to a person, just to avoid mentioning the gender of that person or to include all the possible genders of that person. The next point is also another use of reflexive pronouns. As we said, the classic use of reflexive pronouns is to say that the person or the thing doing the action and the person or the thing receiving the action are the same. So the subject and the object are the same person or the same thing. That's the classic and the usual use of reflexive pronouns. However, reflexive pronouns can also be used to add emphasis to the sentence, which is called the emphatic use of reflexive pronouns. Let me give you a couple of examples. I baked the cake myself. You see, the object here is the cake and the subject is I, so that the subject and the object are different. I baked the cake myself. Myself here as a reflexive pronoun is not used in its classical usage. I'm using it to add emphasis, to say that it was me who baked the cake, nobody else, not someone else. I baked the cake myself. So myself here as a reflexive pronoun is used to add emphasis to the meaning. Also, another example, the manager himself came to apologize. So I say that the manager himself, it was the manager personally who came to apologize. Yeah? They fixed the car themselves. They is the subject, the car is the object, different things and people, but we add themselves to add emphasis. They fixed or repaired or mended the car themselves, which means on their own, without any help. It was only them who did that. The reflexive pronoun, when it's used for the emphatic use, it can be used immediately after the subject or at the end of the sentence. So you can say, she herself organized the event, or she organized the event herself. So you can put the reflexive pronoun, the emphatic reflexive pronoun, right after the noun or the pronoun it emphasizes, or at the end of the clause. So you say she herself organized the event, putting herself immediately after she, which is the person the reflexive pronoun is emphasizing, or you say she organized the event herself. So you put the reflexive pronoun at the end of the clause. Many verbs in English are used with reflexive pronouns, especially in formal or literal English, right? Let me give you a couple of these verbs as examples. So we have absent, which means to stay away or not to attend. So an example for that would be, he absented himself from the meeting, which means that he didn't attend the meeting. He was absent at the meeting. So he absented himself. You see, absented, that's the verb. Himself is the reflexive pronoun. Avail is another verb which is used with a reflexive pronoun, which means avail means to benefit from something or to take advantage from something. For example, she availed herself of the opportunity to speak. Availed herself of the opportunity to speak. Busy, normally busy is used as an adjective, but you can also use it as a verb, which means to make somebody busy. For example, he busied himself. He busied himself. Busied here is spelled B-U-S-I-E-D. He busied himself with cleaning the garage. So he made himself busy by doing the cleaning of the garage. Also, occupy has the same meaning, and it's also used with a reflexive pronoun. You can say, she occupied herself with reading. You can use the two verbs interchangeably. So you can say, he occupied himself with cleaning the garage, or she busied herself with reading. Familiarize is another verb which is used with reflexive pronouns, which means to make somebody familiar with something. For example, I familiarized myself with the new software. As you can see, familiarized myself. I made myself familiar with the new software. Also, we have concern. Concern is another verb which can be used with reflexive pronouns. If you concern yourself, this means that you make yourself interested in that thing, or you are interested in that thing. For example, don't concern yourself with their problems, which means don't worry about their problems. Don't involve yourself in their problems. So, don't concern yourself. As you can see, we're using concern with a reflexive pronoun. Pride is another verb. Normally, pride is used as a noun, but we can use it as a verb, which means that you are proud of somebody or something. You take pride in somebody or something. That's also another verb which is followed by a reflexive pronoun. You can say, she prides herself on her punctuality. She's very proud of herself that she's always punctual. She comes on time. She's never late. Yeah. She prides herself. You see, pride herself. We're using the verb and following it with the reflexive pronoun on her punctuality. One last verb for the same purpose, which is following it with a reflexive pronoun. Trouble. If you trouble yourself, this means you make an effort to do something, or you go through the inconvenience of doing something. So I tell you, for instance, don't trouble yourself. I will take care of it. You see, the verb trouble is followed by the reflexive pronoun yourself. Right, so this point I was making was about some verbs in English which are always or usually followed by reflexive pronouns. Some other verbs in English are optionally followed by a reflexive pronouns, which means that we can omit, we can remove the reflexive pronouns after these verbs. So if you want to add emphasis, you can use a reflexive pronoun. If you don't want to add emphasis, you can just use these verbs without a reflexive pronoun. These verbs are, I have a list of them here. Yeah. So these verbs are behave, acclimatize, dress, undress, prepare, shave, wash, adapt, hide, move. 10 verbs. Of course, there are many more, but these are the ones which I have on my list here. So these verbs can be followed by a reflexive pronoun, or they can be used without the reflexive pronoun after them. For example, you can say, he behaved in class, or he behaved himself in class. To behave is to act in a proper way. He dressed quickly, or he dressed himself quickly. To dress means to put on clothes. And the opposite is to undress, which is to take off clothes. You can say the child undressed, or the child undressed herself. I prepared for the interview, or I prepared myself for the interview. To shave is to remove facial or body hair. So you can say he shaved carefully, or he shaved himself carefully. She washed after the run, or she washed herself after the run. To wash is to clean. The child hid, which is the past of hide. The child hid under the bed, or the child hid herself under the bed. So you can say hid or hid herself. We moved to a safer area, or we moved ourselves to a safer area. So the point I was trying to make here is that this group of verbs and many more can be used with or without a reflexive pronoun after them, unlike the previous group of verbs which I talked about before this, which is usually or almost always followed by a reflexive pronoun to complete their meanings. And I hope today's lesson was useful for you and beneficial. I think I gave you a thorough explanation and a detailed, in-depth, at length demonstration of the lesson of reflexive pronouns. I hope that you have benefited from it. And if you like my content, please like the videos, subscribe to the channel, drop down in the comment box any comments that you might have, and share the videos with your friends and family members to grow our community and to ensure that my channel reaches more and more people for the benefit of all English learners who might come across my channel and benefit from its content. At the end of the video, I'd like to thank you very much for your attentive listening, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Enjoy the rest of your day.